I think I can say this on behalf of the whole gaming community. Video games are getting really expensive. Picking a few that I can remember on the top of my head, in recent years, we have games like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Tekken 8, plus the Game of the Year of 2022 and 2023, Elden Ring, and Baldur's Gate 3. These games cost $60 to $70 each. We also have remakes of older games recently released, such as Resident Evil 4 being $40 and Persona 3 Reload, which is $70. In addition to this, as someone who lives in a third world country, these prices are brutal due to currency conversions, but are slightly salvageable due to regional pricing. Although it is still brutal because some games don't have regional pricing for us. Take this for example. Helldivers 2 is supposed to be $40. Due to no regional pricing for Indonesians, that $40 converted to Indonesian rupiah is around 600,000 rupiah. So the price listing on Steam is 579,000 rupiah. This is pretty much the same price as Elden Ring, which is supposed to be $60 but has regional pricing down to 599,000 rupiah. There are a lot of other examples for this type of case to solidify that video games, at least for AAA titles, are expensive. But I'm not here to ramble about how games should be cheaper or whatnot. I believe that games devs have to be rewarded for their hard work when they make good games. However, I'm here to talk about some different things that could probably prepare us for deciding whether or not we should buy a game based on your own reaction to the game. I'm talking about the game developers and publishers' effort to advertise their games to the masses. You know, most of the time, studios releasing a game's trailer on the internet or in a slot of a special event is usually enough to get their games on people's radar. But I believe there's no such thing as too much advertisement in terms of giving out information on how a game is going to be played. Which leads us to the topic of this video, game store pages. Game store page is probably the least talked about thing when talking about video game advertisements. And I think the art of the game store page is very detrimental to how people dictate when they're gonna spend their money on a video game. The Steam Store is the industry leading platform for video games for the longest time. While Steam's store page can still be improved in multiple angles, Steam is still great because of its ease of access and it just works. For the purpose of this video, I will take a look at Steam store pages and another store page that I deem a good comparison because, well, I'm too lazy to list out more than that. So, for this section, I'll pick a random game store on Steam since this is quite self-explanatory. I'll pick Monster Hunter Rise for this for no particular reason. Here is the Steam store page for Monster Hunter Rise. The store page should have basic info of the game like its title, the banner or box art, the developer's and publisher's name, their price, and the other information about the game itself, such as this list of supports, the system requirements, the languages, the rating, and even the announcements below the price tab to keep people attached to how the game has grown throughout its lifespan. This info is a given, as it has to be in the store page in any shape or form. But there are other aspects of a store page that separates the good store page and the bad store page, and this could distinguish which platform or game is better. Steam store pages requires the game to display screenshots of the game alongside with any trailers that have been released for that game. A section for Steam's own review system where the community can rate how good or bad a game is, and also a tag system to categorize a game with appropriate tags, which makes games better to search in their stores. Now, these things, even though they aren't as crucial as the basic information of a game, is the most mandatory aspect of a store page to get right. So, how do you make a good store page? This is where I have to compare between the good store page versus the bad store page. Let me introduce to you one of the reasons why I made this video. This is Last Epoch.
Epoch.
This is a newly released ARPG akin to Diablo and Path of Exile. The reason why I want to introduce to you this game store page is this particular screenshot. This particular screenshot speaks volume on how informative this one screenshot is, but also how the devs know what the players want to see before actually buying the game. As someone who've played Path of Exile before, I too am conflicted on which classes to play as before playing the game. But seeing this screenshot, this gives you a lot of the ideas of whatever you're going to play as, and essentially makes you interested in buying the game. In extension to the class list screenshot and the mandatory combat action screenshot, they also display some UI elements that you will see in game, like the inventory UI and the skill tree UI, which quickly makes Last
Epoch.
Store page one of the best store page for information and advertisement to better help your judgment into buying this game. Now contrast that to the also infamous Diablo 4. Oh boy. Diablo 4 has the worst screenshot pools I've ever seen for a store page. All of the screenshots of Diablo 4 that they decided to use as advertisement for their game are basically just things standing around in a dark dungeon. There are no UI elements that you would normally see in game, no information of what class is being played in this screenshot, just whatever this is standing around. Like, look at this. Am I supposed to know what this is? Like, I get that this looks atmospheric and you can get yourself immersed in these visuals, and while I can understand that some people want to buy a game just from the visuals alone, but if you want to garner more players, which is why you wanted to advertise in the first place, visuals aren't the only thing that potentially players want to see. People want more information about the actual game, more UI elements, more menus that you would potentially see, more general elements to the game other than the only one you advertise alone. Take example from Path of Exile, the other contender to the ARPG genre. While not as good as Last
Epoch.
screenshot pool, it is still better than Diablo 4's. Path of Exile's gameplay screenshot in the store page didn't leave out the UI elements that you would normally see in game. What makes displaying UI elements better is the hint of what the game has to offer behind the surface level. Take a look at this screenshot. The HP orb on the left bottom of the screen has a blue meter on it. That in itself hints that there is another mechanic on top of the health bar for a defense option in Path of Exile. In this case, it is an energy shield. That thought in itself is a hint of an interesting mechanic that exists in the game, which leads to people getting enticed to actually try the game out. Of course, this is just a small example of many large things or mechanics that can possibly be hinted through the screenshot system. As mentioned before, Steam is basically the leading platform for game store pages, but not exactly for how they present their store pages, since they can still be improved. But for the sake of comparison, let's take other store pages and compare them to Steam's store pages. Let's take the Epic Game Store, since they are the only other platform that is infamously known as Steam's competitor. Okay, I'd like to compare the store pages with a game that is on both platforms and is a top seller, but quickly I found trouble with Epic Game Store because there is nothing visually separating each section in the UI of the store, so it's kinda confusing to navigate. Gotta give credit to Steam on how they utilize the multiple shades of blue to separate any block that needs separation. Well, going kinda off topic there, but let's go back on topic. Here's Cyberpunk 2077's Epic Game Store page. One thing that is instantly noticeable is the larger screenshots section, which is very much appreciated. You can look into the game screenshot without needing to click any of the pictures to zoom in. Or rather, you can't actually click on those pictures. Now, while this is good on the face value, it is somewhat of a balancing act, where the bigger the screenshot space was, there's less space for any other information on a single screen. Keep in mind that screen sizes are limited, and for a medium that wants to give you more information on a single screen, it is imperative to have the right size for those spaces. I personally think that Epic Game Store's screenshot space is a little too big. Not because I don't like big screenshots, but because it takes away multiple information from the first screen before scrolling down. Other than the big screenshot space, is that the placement of the information is partially weirdly placed because of that big screenshot space. On the first screen, there's a lot of empty space up on the top right, seemingly for the game title space. Information like the publisher, the release date, the platform where the game can be played, and the genre/tags of the game is cut and can only be seen when you scroll down, in favor for a few weird information like this game has inclusive character customization and great boss battles. Like, I guess that's a good way to advertise a game, but also this weird statistic called epic rewards and refund type, as if it insinuates that people would buy games so we can get epic rewards, or even to refund it later, I guess. All of these aspects that I have mentioned makes it that the Epic Game Store page is pretty badly designed. I know this is kinda nitpicky at this point, because I definitely know many people who are very particular with UI designs, and most importantly how they spend their money on games. So, how does Steam make their store page better than Epic Games? Let's look at the Steam store page once again. Following the previous rules that I put out, Steam does display every single crucial information on the first screen. The title, the synopsis, release date, developer/publisher, screenshots on the game, genre/tags, and even their own review system displayed in the summary. With all that, if it's on a page for a game that you haven't bought yet, it still have enough space for the price of the packages that you can buy, and also a dedicated suggestion system besides that based on the similar games that you have played, the reviews from the community, and the list of friends that already have that game or have it on wishlist, so that it is a first initiative for further question about the game with your friends. Of course, you'd still need to scroll down for all the other necessary information, but at first glance of this first screen, it is amazing how much you can absorb. Steam has a tag/genre system that is fairly well managed and has very diverse tags for a better game searching mechanism for their platform. The main advantages of Steam tag system is that the tags in Steam is much more specific and diverse. More tags can be added to the tags to better define the game with what the game have through the tag system. And the fact that you can click on the tags to browse on the tags category page is a godsend for navigating games with the same tag. Admittedly, Epic Game Store can click to navigate as well, but the diversity of tags isn't really there yet. I mean, in the Cyberpunk 2077's tag, the most obvious FPS genre, or even as simple as first person, isn't there. All they have is action, adventure, open world, and RPG, in which action and adventure is way too broad of a genre at this point of gaming history. Steam's tag had every minute detail as tags as much as possible. They have Cyberpunk, which is a tag based on the setting at this point, story rich for games that focus on story more, and even nudity since the game has nudity in it. One more point that I forgot to mention on how the Epic Games Store is still inferior to the Steam Store is how Steam already has the significant advantage for having their own Steam review system. While Epic Games Store do not have those, instead they have a rating and reviews section from multiple different outlets and is summarized to the 5-star system visible right below the title. However, Epic Games Store's 5-star rating system proves to be problematic yet again, because we don't actually know where the rating comes from. We know that they displayed ratings from outlets down in that page, but there's no real transparency if that's all that they've put into consideration. Whereas Steam's review system is clear from the community, and you can check how many people voted for a game to be good or bad by hovering your mouse to the review summary. It's understandable that people wouldn't believe gaming journalists anymore due to multiple stupid reviews that some outlets have posted to the internet. So it is questionable to just have the outlets review on a game rather than people's review who actually played the game. And those are the points that I personally think heavily impacts the art of making an effective game store page. Recapping the points that I have made, the basic info of a game must be complete. The screenshot of the game provided in the store page have to convey enough information about the game that made people consider on picking up the game. The placements of the info that is not cluttered and readable in a sense where you can see every important things on the first screen. A good tag/genre system where the tags are not vague and the more specific it is the better. And last but not least, a transparent rating system that summarizes other players' view on the game itself. I'm pretty sure there are more different aspects of game store pages that could be dictated as good or bad, or can be improved further. But as of right now, I can only think about these points. Last
Epic
Steam store page has somewhat inspired me into thinking about the art of store pages. So if you managed to stay this far, I'd like to know what game in your opinion has the best store page management on Steam or any platform at that. Games are getting expensive, and so far, the best way to leverage that is to vote with our money. Hopefully with what I have brought up to attention, I'd help you into thinking for yourself on spending your money wisely on video games.